My name is Minjung Bae, and I am a Cultural Affairs Professional Associate at the U.S. Mission to India. On behalf of the U.S. Embassy in New Delhi, its 4 consulates, and the American Center in New Delhi, I thank you for joining us today. The American Center in New Delhi is the U.S. Embassy's public engagement space where we connect with Indian citizens to share U.S. culture and promote our shared democratic values. We are home to the Nexus Startup Incubator and the iHub, a specialized reference and research facility that offers access to comprehensive and authoritative information on the United States, its people, and its policies. We host many events at the American Center, such as film screenings, art exhibitions, panel discussions, workshops, and cultural performances. Due to COVID-19, we are currently hosting all of these events virtually on the American Center New Delhi Facebook. We look forward to inviting you back to the American Center for in-person events as soon as we can. Today, I'd like to welcome you to Josh-e-Umang, a year-long series of performing arts we are presenting in association with the Kutum Foundation. The series aims to start conversations on issues important to all of us through artistic performances, including music, dance, and poetry. Through art, we share with you our great enthusiasm for celebrating diversity, inclusivity, and creativity. Please submit any questions you may have for our guests in the comment sections, and we will try to have them answered in the Q&A session. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you enjoy the event.
Thank you, Min. My name is Priya, and I would also like to welcome you all to today's performance. We have an amazing duo with us today who have conceptualized and curated a special performance just for you. We have Rofia Ramesh with us. Rofia is a dedicated dancer whose sensitivity and intuition align perfectly with the art of movement expressed through music. Trained under Smith K. Mahalakshmi and Sri G. Narendra, her skills and sensibilities have been honed for more than 20 years across national and international platforms, dancing to thousands across the world from a young age. Rofia has a Bharatanatyam background and has performed in the Sadhana Festival, Brahmagana Sabha, and Indisha Festival, among others. In this performance, Rofia's choreography seeks to tell the story of the pieces as they take the listener through waves, cycles of the moon, and windstorms. In her free time, she is in the final stages of her doctorate studies at IIT Madras, where she's a scholarship recipient and research scholar. Joining her on the guitar is Matt Bacon, top prize winner at the Texas National Music Festival's Classical Minds competition. Guitarist Matt Bacon is a highly sought after performer, songwriter, recording artist, and teacher, now on faculty at KM Music Conservatory in Chennai, India, the most lauded music school on the subcontinent. As a studio musician, Matt's playing can be found on a long list of acts featuring electronic groups such as Sapta and Bluesanova, the Indie100 Xchange, and AR Rahman's and Anirudh's film scores. Before moving to India, Matt has performed across the United States at venues such as Barshinger Hall at Franklin and Marshall College, the John Marlowe Guitar Series in Washington, D.C., a sold out performance at the historic Fayetteville Theatre in West Virginia, and has had his performances featured on WITF Radio Harrisburg, the San Francisco News, the American Film Society, BBC Radio London, Fever 91.9 Chennai, Radio Calcutta, and has recorded on AR Rahman's film 24. I know you're all eagerly waiting for the performance to start, and I'd also like to apologize for the technical issue that we faced a little while ago. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for staying with us. So I'd like to quickly say that don't forget to share your thoughts, comments, likes, hearts, and questions with us. And we will have a live Q&A session, as Min mentioned earlier, after the performance. So if you do have a question, we'll ask the artists to answer it during the session. That's all from me. Let's please welcome Matt and Rofia.
I'm Matt, and I'm here with Rofia. Tonight's program featured several different pieces for guitar, all of which I composed or arranged for it. The choreography is done entirely by Rofia. I'll give you kind of a brief overview or summary. So the pieces take on several different moods are encaptured, but the way that I like to look at the music is it's combining a lot of my personal interests or influences. Namely, I like to fuse together classical guitar with different world music, with a bit of a world music edge, Indian scales to it, and a bit of Led Zeppelin tuning for a few of them. And what's interesting is that in putting together this program, the mood or ideas I was trying to encapsulate in the pieces ended up being expressed through Rofia's dance, whether subconsciously or intuitively, but the movements that you'll watch her do basically illustrate the meaning of a lot of these pieces. So for like one I've had on Spotify for a while now, Masala Blues, her choreography involves lighting a flame or a lamp and moving it around, and you see that these pulses of the fire moving through. Or with Skaya, which is about waves or the ocean, illustrated through the arpeggios on the guitar. And she just happened to come up with the choreography that basically lined up perfectly with what I was thinking with writing it, even though we didn't really discuss it, we just played through stuff. She'll tell you guys a bit more about that, but that's what you have to look forward to.
So when Matt first told me about this project, I was like, hold on, there's no mridangam in here, there's no natangam in here, but you want us to do like a classical contemporary-ish sort of thing. And well, it so happened that the more we thought about these pieces, it just, a lot of rhythmic patterns just lined up. So for the etudes, it's more rhythmic and movement-oriented, more of nritta, as we would call it. And for the Skaya suite, which is prelude, concentric circles, Skaya, and then postlude, it just felt more like a tiny little storyline in there. So prelude felt very fresh, and it's really amazing that the way Matt thought about it, the way he's played these pieces or composed them is such that his mood intuitively lined up with my mood for these pieces. So prelude is very fresh, like rain and flowers blooming and peacocks dancing and just real joy and happiness. Whereas if you look at concentric circles, the mood is slightly more darker in some sense. There's a lot more solitude, and that's when we thought of this whole story. Or for me, it was like the moon just being out there in the night sky, night after night, just alone in some sense. But it's not dark in a very depressing state because there's like a lot of hope towards the end of the same piece. So which is why for me, it felt like the moon's not so alone there. There's like, it has an attraction, it has an anchor in the waves, in the tidal waves in some sense. So that's how Skaya came about, which is basically the attractiveness between the moon and the ocean, and in some sense together they make like a unity. And postlude was very meditative for us. It was just giving thanks, being grateful for what we have. So in some sense, those pieces just lined up like that. It's this whole idea is classically based, but a little bit of contemporary influence in it, trying to stay true to the essence of the music as much as we could.
Yeah, well, captivating different sounds and moving it a bit forward, I guess, or a bit in a combination that you don't usually hear with guitar or someone who's Western classically trained versus, we're used to playing like Bach or Granados or Albéniz. Mm-hmm. So doing a program of original music with original choreography, I don't know that it's been done before actually for solo guitar. So we have that to say, which is pretty cool. And you guys get to see it first. So we're excited to have you here on the other side of the screen. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy.
Hope you enjoy it, yeah.
Wow, what a performance! If this was live, a physical performance, I'm sure people would have been, hooting and shouting, encore, encore, definitely. I was like seriously wishing I could see a little bit more. It was so amazing. I don't know if you could see me backstage, dancing, trying, swaying with the music. Both of you were fabulous. I mean, uh, this is the first time I'm actually seeing like a traditional Bharatanatyam kind of like, traditional Indian dance form playing in this kind of a setup. But it did not seem, it gelled so well. It did not seem like it was out of place at all. Both of you, I have to say, I mean, credit to both Matt and Rofia for being able to do this, bring this thing together. It must have been an incredible feat to sort of find that, that path to just bring this thing together. I don't know how you guys did it.
I think for me, the hardest part was my back.
There's a reverb. There's a reverb.
It's not mine. My back is sore from sitting in that corner.
There's a reverb from your end.
There isn't. It's that you have to mute yours when someone else is talking on it. See if that fixes it. Yeah. And there goes the timing for my joke. Okay. So now what am I supposed to say? You said it's super physical, right? So yeah. I was saying it's physical because I was sitting in that corner all day long when we taped it on Sunday, in case you were wondering why our outfits are totally different. But no, the music I pieced together, I want to say in February or March, from an album reflection of works I called Concentric Circles. And it's a lot of, as you can hear, it's pretty intense pieces in there, in pretty exotic tunings on the guitar. But somewhere along the way, I guess you guys approached us with this, and then Rofia had the idea of putting the choreography to it. And truth be told, it fit really, really naturally. I mean, she can tell you more about that. But from my end, like she would just be drafting something out, and I'd just go, "Oh, that's perfect for it." Like I still think her original little cell phone video practice, like 30-second demo, is still like kind of peak on it. Like there's just something improvisatory about it. So it came together really natural, in a really natural way as far as that's concerned. But she can speak a little more to the creative process on that side.
Hey, thanks, Matt. Yeah, so when we first came up with this idea that we had to do this together in some way, I was like, there's no percussion on this, right? And the first time I heard Masala Blues, almost like I think roughly a year ago, I just intuitively started dancing to it, and I'm like, this would be so great to like set to some sort of movement-oriented form. And then we just forgot about it, left it in the back end, and then eventually, when this idea came up of a concert and when we do it together, sat down and just played the pieces over and over in my head again, and I'm like, what do I feel for each of these pieces, right? I felt like each one had an emotion, each one had a mood to it. Like I said, when I listened to Masala Blues, it was just energy, a lot of just free flow of energy. Right? So I kind of listened to the heart rather than trying to listen to the head and be like, okay, set a takadimi or set a talanku takadiktom or something like that. So instead of trying to listen or try to set something or arbitrarily force something, we just sort of internalized the music first, felt the mood behind every piece, and then something just naturally came up, like a flow came up. And once or twice when I would feel a bit stuck, Matt would like, do you want me to give you some ideas? And I'd be like, no, just hold on. Let's see what comes up for me. And then I would show it to him and he'd be like, this is perfect. Like, I'm glad I didn't tell you what I was going to tell you. So somehow we both aligned in some sense, I think. So his ideas aligned with the way I was looking at the pieces. So in that way, I think that's how the workflow was. It was never, oh, we have a timeline, sit down, set this. No, it was just very intuitive. The process was intuitive for us.
Yeah, I mean, I can see how well, I mean, the whole performance, everybody could see how well it came together. Matt, I just want to just quickly ask you a question, but there's a slight reverb happening from your end. I don't know how that is happening, but maybe it's the mic or if you could just check, because there's a slight echo happening while you were talking.
Check.
It's there. Can you just reduce the reverb?
There's no reverb. My settings haven't changed. Hopefully it sounds cool.
It's a little better.
Did you want to try doing that setting where you turn off all the effects on your audio that we tried at the trial run? Okay.
Yeah. So I wanted to actually just ask Matt that, I mean, this whole composition and arrangements that you have been doing, they're so beautiful. How do you bring in the Indian elements into your compositions? The Indian elements are not, I mean, the styles are, I'm not a musician, so correct me if I'm wrong, but the styles are a bit different. So, bringing Indian elements into your composition would be a bit of a challenge, wouldn't it be? So, but how did you do it? Because they sound so beautiful. And could you also play a piece for us after you tell us about it?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it's intentional. I would say that it's just sort of like I don't seek it out. I don't sit at home and think like I'm going to write something that has it's going to be influenced by this rock or whatever, and this rhythmic cycle. I think it's just kind of subconscious, or it gets kind of in there. Just I guess kind of like being like a sponge, I guess. So and people have asked me this. It would be strange to purposely try to copy, like, I'm going to, only do this piece in copy or something like that. And because I think it'll just sound really too forced. So for something like concentric circles, like I said, the tuning for that's the same tuning as some Led Zeppelin songs that I like. But basically, I had an idea of coming up with like I knew I had a cool riff with it. And, some simple idea that you hear a lot in Indian classical music is you'll have like a rhythmic cycle that goes around, and then that'll have some different subdivisions of it. And that's kind of what fed off to Rofia in her imagination when hearing it. For me, when I was doing it, I wanted it in that piece just to create some, like, it's a very uncertain piece, due to the uncertain times, let's say. And so how I made that kind of haunting effect is basically I just have a steady eighth note going the whole way through, but its groupings are changing really frequently. Like in some parts, it's a grouping of 5. In some parts, it's a 6 and then a 7 right after it. In some parts, back to 5. And you don't really notice it because the pitches are all coming in the same kind of rhythm. And there's not really a melody, but it kind of just oscillates back and forth in these bass notes. So you start hearing different beats as if they're beat 1, even though it's all kind of just unfolding. So like the first obvious part that comes out, let's see if you can, just give me a thumbs up if you guys can hear this okay. If I play some. Can we hear that? So yeah, like the obvious spot is where it comes to 5 on the, and 3 and 4 and 5, and it comes back to 5 again in this bit, which is just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But in between all of that, there's all these phrases that are like sort of the same thing, but put in a really asymmetrical way. So I'll tune up, I'll just play it and see if you can listen and notice that. And what makes it come alive is you start hearing the layers, which is mainly in the right hand. You'll hear notes on top, notes kind of in the middle where you hear this kind of like it's going the whole way through. But I'll play one note in such a way that'll dominate or pop out on top of that. So see if you notice these kind of little illusions going on. Thank you. Yeah, the applause. The muted applause. Great. So I hope that was okay, and I hope the echo sounded cool on that at least. So hopefully, maybe hearing it there, you heard some different perspectives relative to the dance. And the interesting thing in the dance she's doing is in some of those spots, like the 6, 7, and then the 5 or whatever comes after it, she's adding up the total number of that. So 6 plus 7 is 5. I have to do math on screen now. 13 plus 5 is 18. Yeah, you go ahead and tell them about it, how you're breaking it down.
Yeah, so there was this one part in concentric circles where we were like, I was like doing the whole math behind it, and he was like, what are you doing? And I'm like, just breaking it down. He's like, it's very simple. And I'm like, it's not simple. And here I'm going like, there's a 3 4s and then a double 4 and then a double 3. And he's like, it's just a 6 and a 7. That's all it is. And I'm like, actually, no, it's not. So what he counts as 6 and 7, I count as 12 and 14, but not a plain 12 and a 14, but a 3 times 4, 12. And then for the 14, I go 2 times 4, 2 times 3. So it's 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 3, 3. So that's how we were breaking it down and getting all these patterns, which was very interesting for us because the way we were both looking at the same piece or counting the same piece was so different.
And this is what happens is like, I'll do that randomly or not have any intention of doing that or breaking it down in a piece. Sky is the really obvious one that has that as well too. And then somebody like, how do you know all these subdivisions from like Tabla or something? And I'm like, I'll be honest, I have no idea. I'm just coming up with stuff. And I'll be like, oh yeah, it's like 6 times 2 plus 7 minus 4 times 3 plus 4. And I'm like, yes, I meant to do that. Yes, exactly.
So effortlessly you make it so complicated. And I'm like, how?
Yeah, but that's the kind of story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't realize I was on mute. I mean,
are you crying? Brought a tear to her eye.
tears from laughter. But it's quite amazing, how both of you saw things from 2 completely different perspectives, and then managed to find that path together. So just like one last thing that I wanted to ask Rofia only. I mean, you mentioned this earlier about, without a mridangam performing. But I mean, of course, there is a lot of sense of rhythm in his music, but still without an actual instrument, like a tabla or a mridangam or a ghatam or some rhythm-based instrument. How are you keeping the thing? How are you managing your performance? Did it come in the way of the performance, or how did you go about it?
Well, the short answer would be I memorized the sequence. I choreographed it on myself, and then I memorized the entire sequence of the rhythmic pattern. So if he changed 5 5 6 7 and 4 times 6 7 and then went 5 5, I just by hearted the whole thing. But let's also at some point, and again, like I said, it just once you set it, it flows naturally for you. It's like muscle memory after a point. Like you would just do it that way. But yes, like you said, I was in the beginning quite. I I wouldn't say anxious. I was a bit concerned on how to, get the point across of all these rhythmic patterns. It shouldn't sound jarring. That was my biggest concern, right? It shouldn't sound like you said a completely different kind of a footwork to music that sounds different. I didn't want it to look like oranges and apples in some sense. I wanted it to flow in one unified whole. So that was a bigger issue, or rather a bigger area that I had to work on, as opposed to the rhythmic patterns or like not having an instrument. So for that, I decided not to go past his own 6s and 7s and not put in my own interpretations in terms of make that 8-4 or something like that. So I stuck to his bass notes, like what he said is 5-5, 6-7. I stuck to that, and within that, I worked as much as I wanted to. So that's the best way that I could go about it without a percussion instrument. But of course, the percussion instrument comes in, that'll be a whole new perspective. But at least now we wanted to keep this very raw, keep it very simple and raw in some sense, just like raw energy. So that's how this worked.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, in the performance, it didn't seem like it was missing any other instrument, honestly. It went so well that if you guys ever do this live as well, I think you should just stick to this format, because that is what brings in the unique factor, and it's working so beautifully. You have to after the event, just go back and see the comments of how many people have appreciated this. People have been showering love and comments, saying
cool.
about
Thanks.
how much they love it. So that just goes to show that how well this whole thing has worked. So really, I don't think it needs anything else. What do you think, audience? Don't you think that this is absolutely perfect? Like, it doesn't require anything. I definitely think so. I definitely would love to see like a longer version, if you are able to ever develop a longer version. Would love to.
We'd definitely like to, yeah.
Yeah.
We would
now
like
that
to,
you've
yeah.
set the ball rolling, I don't think we're stopping now.
Okay, so I'd like to say thank you once again, Matt and Rofia, for that wonderful performance. And thank you, audience, for all your comments and likes and hearts. It's really encouraging. I mean, for the the performers who can't hear the applauses, at least the showers of love virtually also means a lot. So thank you for doing that. Please be sure to take our survey, a link to which we are going to post in the comment section below. And don't forget to share this video with your friends and colleagues, and join American Center New Delhi's Cultural Explosion group to stay up to date on more events like this. We have some great events lined up. Up next is a dramatized reading by the students of IP College for Women. This will be on the 12th of August at 5 p.m. right here. And they will be exploring excerpts from American author Jhumpa Lahiri's short stories. So please join us and help us spread the word. Thank you once again, Matt and Rofia. I hope to see this performance in the physical space once this pandemic gets over and we get to host you live, hopefully someday soon. And thank you, audience, for joining us, and hope you have a lovely day. On behalf of everyone at the US Embassy's American Center, New Delhi, and the Kutum Foundation, have a great evening.
Thank you. Thanks, Arka. We'll see you in Theo soon.